fraud, blatant theft, and now a mysterious death. This is the story of how one of Valve's biggest games, Dota 2, and its custom game arcade, has become one of the craziest and saddest stories in all of gaming. But before we get to the what, we need to talk about the why and the how. And for that story, we need to talk about Valve and the interesting history of the Dota 2 arcade. Valve is one of the world's leading game developers, and in 2019, they were estimated to be valued at over $10 billion. That's a lot of bees, man. You might know them for creating things like Steam, Counter-Strike, Team Fortress, Half-Life, and Dota 2. Also Artifact, but no one ever talks about that. Valve has a rich history of having openly moddable games. Counter-Strike, one of the world's most successful games ever, was originally a mod for Valve's game Half-Life. And Dota was originally a custom game created in Blizzard's game Warcraft 3 that had an open community custom game browser for people to create and play their own games in the Warcraft 3 game engine. So no wonder Valve thought it would be a good idea to have a place for the community to create custom games just like they did in Warcraft 3. In Valve's own words, custom games represent a continuation of the tradition that gave birth to Dota, Team Fortress, and Counter-Strike. We like to build an ecosystem where you can experience something new every time you launch Dota 2. And so they did, launching the Dota 2 custom game browser, soon to be called the Dota 2 Arcade, in 2015. Giving people powerful tools to create their very own games, allowing people to even create and edit their own models, UI, and even their own scripts. People use these to make dungeon adventures, new multiplayer games, and even first-person shooters. All of this was completely free-to-play, fun, innocent, and for the sake of a good time. Valve also launched a few of their own custom games that were loved and highly played by the community. One known as Overthrow, a free-for-all arena battler, and Dota 10v10, which was just normal Dota 2 with more players to create some madness. But seemingly, just like all things, Valve roughly 3 years after they launched the arcade, stopped supporting and updating the arcade and their very own custom games. Eventually, they became so out of date they weren't even playable anymore, leaving a group of sad players and a gap to be filled. And who would fill that gap? A seemingly nice and well-known Dota 2 modder comes in and copies the games and updates them so they're playable again, even renaming a Steam account as Dota 2 Unofficial, possibly to trick people into thinking it's still being developed by Valve and is the official custom game. Or maybe it was just a harmless joke, who really knows. But this man would become known as Darklord, and he is the main person of interest in this story. So some time passes and the copies of the originals begin to gain some traction, known as Overthrow 2.0 and Dota 12v12. These modes actually get a lot of new content updates by Darklord and his team. However, on October 3rd, 2018, they added a way for players to purchase in-game benefits, this being completely unregulated and having no affiliation with Valve or Steam. Normally when a developer puts a game on Steam, Valve gets about a 30% cut of whatever the developer makes. But in the Dota 2 arcade, the developer actually gets 100% of the revenue, and they even need to make their own bank accounts in China so they can process payment there. The modders literally just coded their own store, own payment, own everything into the mod itself. Were they the first modders to do this? It's unclear, but they were one of the most successful at it, starting a new era for the Dota 2 arcade. There used to be a bunch of free-to-play indie custom games that were completely free and just made for fun by the modding community, was now home to potential fraud and soon-to-be blatant theft. Now that lots of money was involved, we all know what people are going to do for it. Soon, entire China's game studios started making their own custom games just for Dota 2. You might have even heard of one. That's right, Dota Auto Chess, released on the arcade on January 4th, 2019, and soon to become a genre-defining massive success. By March of that year, it had peaked at over 360,000 concurrent players. For reference, that would put this at number 2 on the Steam charts currently, having more concurrent players than Dota 2 itself. This game really shined a light on the Dota 2 arcade and brought people who didn't even play Dota 2. Hearthstone streamers like Kripparrian, Dog, Trump, they all downloaded Dota 2 just to play in the arcade. But just like me, the success didn't last long, and by August of the same year, player numbers dwindled to only 30,000, dropping nearly 90%, and the bright spotlight on the arcade began to darken as we soon drifted back into irrelevancy. As you can imagine, with the extreme success of Auto Chess, and now the realization for many modders that you can make an incredible amount of money creating games for the arcade, now even more entire game studios and incredibly talented modders started working on Dota custom games full time. This led to many great games being created, but sadly, it would also lead to fraud, blatant plagiarism, and even botting attacks on competing games.
Hell no.
On February 18th, 2020, a full year after Auto Chess was originally published, the soon-to-be second biggest custom game of all time was uploaded to the Dota 2 arcade by the popular modder known as Noob Humiliator, who was known for creating a popular wave defense game called Together We Stand. Until this point, no game had seen anywhere near the success of auto chess. There were a few games that came along and had mild successes, getting a few thousand concurrent players, but for the most part, the arcade was mostly just auto chess and games copied and updated by darklord that were made originally by Valve. But that was about to change, as the new game, Custom Hero Chaos, had just been released, and was instantly met with love and excitement from the Dota community, and within 2 months was peaking at over 50,000 concurrent players. Again, to keep this in perspective, this would put it in the top 10 on all of games on Steam. The game was so successful because it allowed Dota 2 players to create their very own heroes. Every game, you would start with a choice of a random Dota hero, and as the game went on, you would farm and draft new and random abilities, creating a completely unique and different hero each time you played. Loved by the Dota community, unplayable by everyone else, as you had to have a lot of Dota 2 knowledge to enjoy the game, unlike auto chess, which is basically its own game entirely. Seeing the immense success of this new game, darklord, the current owner and developer of the Valve updated games Overthrow 2.0 and Dota 12v12, saw a grand money-making opportunity. Why make my own custom games from scratch when I can just download someone else's and rebrand it as my own, like I did with the Valve games? Knowing Valve wouldn't do anything about it, he did. He copied Custom Hero Chaos and re-uploaded it as Custom Hero Clash. Unlike before with other popular games, this one wasn't made by an entire gaming studio and could be genuinely improved upon. And darklord at the time had a full team of devs with him, while Noob had mostly just himself. So then, how could Noob compete? darklord and his team updated and improved on Custom Hero Chaos, and when they got to the point where they generally thought it was a better version, not much better mind you, just some basic fixes and updates, it's believed by the community and myself that they did something that's truly messed up, which started the war of Chaos vs. Clash. They abused an exploit in Valve's arcade system to bot attack the original game, Custom Hero Chaos, and making it unplayable for most of the community, which caused Chaos to lose over 50% of its player base overnight. This obviously caused many people to point fingers at Valve and blame Valve for the issue, which of course Valve is responsible, but you have to wonder, why would someone spend so much time and resources attacking one specific arcade game?
Get off my car! He's got money!
Eventually, the Reddit got so upset that Valve actually had to do something, and they fixed the botting issue. But at this point, it was too late, and the player numbers for Chaos never fully recovered. Oddly enough, right around this time, Clash added a big update, and added a monthly subscription which gave players in-game bonuses, basically making the game what is known as pay to win. Taking Noob's original custom game, copying the code one for one, re-uploading using his teams of devs to make it slightly better, then attacking the opposing custom game, Chaos, and then selling out and making the custom game pay to win. What a disgusting thing to do. Now, there is no proof that the Clash devs or darklord actually did the bot attacks, but it is generally assumed so by the community, and honestly, the timing just lines up way too well for me to think otherwise. However, nothing ever comes of this, and Clash and Chaos both stay on the arcade and continue development. And nothing really notable happens to either for about a year. Clash stays focused on trying to make as much money as possible, while also trying to make the game better. And during this time, they basically rewrite and rework the entire game. Well, the devs did this, while darklord seemingly just wanted to make as much money as possible, forcing in pay-to-win features against the communities and even devs' will, while the Chaos dev more or less just moves on and starts making other games. Both remain second and third on the arcade for most of the year, and things stay quiet. That is, until recently, November 8th, 2021. A new game is published on the arcade, and it's instantly hit with success, peaking at over 4,000 concurrent players. The game is very well made, and obviously took the team that made it an extreme amount of time and energy to create. Guess what? darklord copies it and starts working on doing the same thing again, but this time to the game known as Dota 1x6. But instead of history repeating itself, a wrench gets thrown in, as the Dota 2 custom game YouTuber known as Bommy finds out about his plans to steal and re-upload Dota 1x6 as Dota 1x6 Turbo. So Bommy makes a video detailing basically what we just covered, how darklord has stolen many of the games in the past and re-uploaded them just to profit off them, detailing some of the fraud going on with some of the payment providers, the botting, and just the general terrible things going on in the arcade because Valve doesn't enforce a code of conduct.
We do not care.
Now darklord is abusing that to make a lot of money. After making the video, Reddit does Reddit things and gets really mad at Valve for not doing anything about this for years, and darklord for, well, being the one doing most of it. This results in a very strange series of events. darklord gets a copy strike on his newly stolen game, and then proceeds to go into Bommy's Discord and thank him for it, saying that it's supposed to be this way, and that the winner comes out on top, and even Dota is a stolen hodgepodge of other games. You would think that it would end there, but no, the story is really only starting. He then proceeds to make weird remarks about how Bommy acts like a Nazi, saying things like, "I always appreciate his feedback, even though I know it to be cold and unforgiving, like the Nazis in World War II, and that German culture is just like that." And then calling his wife a communist, saying that he's going to out her and make a website about her. Then things break down in the Customer Clash Discord as well. People are leaving and threats are being thrown around, and darklord seems to just kind of go off the walls here. Basically, everything begins to fall apart around darklord's eyes. All of the greed and morally unjust things seem to catch up with him as the community starts to completely turn on him. Then, after being threatened and attacked, Bommy makes another video, strictly on darklord this time. At the time of making this, all these videos have been removed or unlisted, but he basically calls darklord himself out on being a mentally deranged racist, showing all of the anti-Semitic weird stuff he says on Twitter. Bommy even shows a message he got from one of darklord's friends, talking about how he wants to go to war and even hire mercenaries to kill Mickey, Bommy's wife, which of course fed the hate train on him even more. But that's pretty much all that happened. darklord got cancelled by the Dota community, lost some employees, and that's the end of the story. Well, that wasn't until very recently. On November 25th, 2021, it was announced that he passed away of natural causes in his sleep. What an insane turn of events. All of this happens and then he just dies? Then they announce 2 $1,000 memorial tournaments for the games he mostly stole? This was obviously met with extreme skepticism from the community. However, several reliable community members, including Bommy, the YouTuber who originally made the videos about him in the first place, has stated they fully believe this to be true, and that he did not commit suicide, he did not fake his death, and he really just naturally died. And it really just is just the most insane, oddly timing coincidence ever. However, the truth of the matter is the timing and the insane story leading up to all of this will always pose the question of what really happened. We may never know, and probably will never know. However, I think we as a community should just assume what is being said is true and respect the people who lost a loved one and move on from the situation. That being said, as long as his company, ARCADIA REDUX, doesn't continue in his footsteps and shows positive change, I don't think there is a reason to know or even care. And that's why I made this video. It's not to paint darklord as some evil villain who's still up to no good and needs to be brought to justice, or to paint Bommy as this hero who saved a community from a horrible guy. In fact, I'm sure a lot of you are wondering, this was happening for so long. Why did he finally just decide to speak about it? Well, Bommy answered a very similar question on Reddit, basically saying he got too used to the status quo and just stopped questioning it, but eventually had enough and finally did something. He also takes some blame, saying he shouldn't have even engaged with this kind of shit in the first place, which is understandable. And honestly, at the end of the day, what he did is good for the community and is going to bring a lot of positive change. And I too need to take some blame in this, as I openly promoted and played Customer Clash, the stolen version of the game, for, well, nearly a year now. I didn't fully understand that it was a complete copy. I honestly thought it was just a stolen idea, but knowing all of this now, I personally will no longer play Customer Clash until they remove or make plans to remove all the extreme pay-to-win features of the game, as in my opinion, this goes against the spirit of what custom games are all about, and I don't want to support it anymore.